Some functions of diverse brain parts. We are going to talk about not all the capabilities of a man, but only those which can be performed through the given biological organism and brain structure. If someone has the strong developed limbic system, let it be some part of paleocortex, so some of simply sparitive forms will influence actively the focus dynamics of this person's self-consciousness and will stimulate development of the current focus dynamics and its amiceratsia, refocusing process in the definite protoformal synthesis direction. Other simply sparitive forms, let's say, can influence through archicortex. It is also performed in different protoformal synthesis directions. Thus, they also stimulate increasing our interest in some development directions, not peculiar to loumическая real human form. Neocortex reflects not always the loumический type of benevolentность, because, for example, creators of the orbifrontal cortex and dorsomedial cortex are severely dependent on the limbic system. As we know, the limbic system is strictly managed by creators of amygdala, who adapt focus dynamics of a person in one or another direction. However, ventromedial creators have the specific protection from impact of creators of amygdala. The infralimbic area. It's a small area, but it protects them very effectively from various spontaneous, intensive impacts from amygdala. Meaning, ventromedial cortex is tied with hypothalamus, because the middle part of hypothalamus activates both ventrolateral and dorsolateral cortex. If the middle part of hypothalamus is tied with the whole limbic system, so do ventrolateral and dorsolateral cortexes. However, the frontal part of hypothalamus, which is closely related to amygdala, has no relation to these brain parts, to activation of ventrolateral and dorsolateral cortexes. Meaning, there is no relation among amygdala and namely these neurons. Does the infralimbic system inhibit activity of the limbic system somehow? What is the main sense of the infralimbic system? Yes, it cuts off the signals. The afferent signals from amygdala aren't perceived by it. Efferent signals are present, but afferent ones are disabled. In other words, there is a one-way direction, not of reciprocal type of connection, not mutual. Creators of lateral cortex can influence the amygdala's condition due to the strong braking the dopaminergic ways. The substantia nigra, striatum, which are closely related to lateral cortex, facilitate deactivation of amygdala creators. Dorsolateral and ventromedial creators possess no interrelations with amygdala. They represent these parts in our genome, which at origination of human genotype weren't subjected to methylation, mutations, Due to heavy climate variations and necessity for switching on the genes parts responsible for surviving, these are protoformly parts of our genome. Extraterrestrial civilizations put into this animal base the ability for improving intelligence, high sensuality, and tied to that base the mechanisms of intelligence and high sensuality manifestation, namely dorsolateral and ventrolateral parts of prefrontal cortex. When they start to develop in a person, then the impact of various factors on ampliatudinous, high qualitativeness of our decisions decreases. These are areas which don't mutate at their functional snaps. This is the very important moment. If different protoformal genes mutate, get subjected to methylation, various protoformal impacts, and so on, so the genes which activate neurons of lateral cortex remain unchanged. However, they have to be activated, haven't they? They might be activated by means of consistent synthesis, firstly, between orbitofrontal and dorsomedial parts. Why dorsomedial? Because dorsomedial cortex is tied to physical person, separated from everything else, to the person which we identify as ourselves, our individuality, subjectivity of our existence. Through this snap, orbitofrontal creators perform all skills in surviving, reproduction, fundamental improvement. As ventromedial cortex is getting launched, they start to amplify, improve their activities. Interests are changed for more qualitative ones, so are the purposes of life. Only then the genes of the Lumicskaya synthesis direction get launched. They activate cognitive, highly cognitive, intellectual processes, the high sensuality, and so on. Ventrolateral cortex determines our sensuality to the most degree, which turns to intuitiveness, to forms conceptions from the collective subconsciousness. Dorsolateral part conditions our intellect to the most degree, that is, arlaktorность, activity of arlaktor Iissiidi. The latter also turns to intuitiveness, to the collective subconsciousness. During evolvement, activity of all areas, paleocortex and archicortex, decreases. The same is for amygdala. Generally, in demidiomitensny forms, these structures possess the inchoate sense, become atavisms in their functionality, so to speak. Because the neuronal chains through which these brain parts are performed get smaller, smaller and smaller. The synapses, peculiar to them resonationally, also tend to disappear. New neurons, which have already been originated through hippocampus, get involved into more highly intellectual, highly sensual chains. What was peculiar to more primitive neurons progressively dies, comes out of chains, destructures them, deactivates, and so forth. Therefore, participation of paleocortex and archicortex get offset and becomes annihilated.